Okie dokes. So now we're in this position where we're going to add our footage into After Effects, the footage we've just made in the Insta Studio. We're going to add in our character and we're going to start trying to map them across the top. Okay, so what we're going to do is, first of all, I'm going to go and find my the footage that I've just done. So this is my VR2 output, and then with the one, because that's the one I've just done. Okay, and if I pick this up and drag this down onto the composition tile like so, then we should find that it's around the sort of 16 seconds mark that I disappear, and it's about the 16-second mark that our footage begins. So it's about there, isn't it? Yeah, that. And so I'm going to move in my playhead marker up to the end there, like so. Okay, and so as you can see, this is our footage. We've got our nadir patched out, and if we look closely, we should also see our red little tracking dot. Great. So what we're going to now do is we're going to bring in our character. So I downloaded my character earlier, so here he is. Okay, I'm going to bring him in like so and drag him down over the top of the footage. So there he is, looking a bit gormless in front of his green screen. All right. We're going to open up the properties of this clip here and open up the transform first of all, and we're going to scale him down to around 25%, something like that. I mean, you can make him as big as you want in your footage. I mean, that's entirely up to you what you want to do. But I'm going to make him about that sort of size, and then I'm going to bring him up to around the sort of top of the footage where we're going to slot him. And I might make him a bit smaller, actually. I might make him about sort of 20, something like that maybe. Okay. There we go. So what we're now going to do is, first of all, I'm going to get my over in the Effects and Presets tab, I'm going to type in Keylight into the search area. I'm going to get Keylight 1.2. I'm going to drag that over onto my clip of the guy. In fact, actually, while I'm here, I might just rename that just so it's easy for you to follow. So I'm going to call that character, like so. So I've dragged that effect onto my character. Okay, I'm going to go to this screen color dropper, and I'm just going to select this green like so, and now that's got rid of most of it. Now you might want to do this a bit more carefully, but for the purposes of this tutorial, I'm just going to dial up the screen gain until I've got a sort of reasonably pleasing composition, so 130, something like that. Okay, and then obviously we've got this gubbins at the top, so I'm just going to get my pen tool and I'm just going to mask that out. And obviously all we have to do is open up our mask in character, and I'm going to set that to subtract, and what that's now done is it's taken out the lights that were over our character's head and left our character behind. Good, so far so good. So the next stage then, before we start animating our character, is we want our character to match our footage. And the technique that we tend to use for this, when we've got two bits of footage and one of them is like green screened and we're going to try and map them together, is first of all we try and take colour out of the equation, because colour can sometimes be misleading in terms of trying to get our footage, two bits of footage, to sort of match. So what we're going to do first of all is I'm going to highlight our source footage, and I'm going to just rename that again as background. There we go. So now I've got our background clip. Okay, and I'm going to go up to Effect, and I'm going to go to Color Correction and Black and White, and I'm going to just make that black and white. And then I'm going to go to my character, and I'm going to do the same thing: Effect, Color Correction, Black and White. Okay, and what this does is it allows us to see the contrast of the two images, and we can kind of see what we might want to do. So first of all, I mean, we haven't actually color graded our backdrop yet, so what we might do is we might sort of actually decide to add in our backdrop first of all an effect, and we might go to color correction, and we might go to curves, and we might just push up brightness a little bit, pull down the bottom there so it's like oh, we're on RGB there. Oops, there we go. We need to be on RGB. There we are. So we're going to push that up slightly like so, and then we're just going to just drag that down like that just to make it a bit more contrasty. So that looks cool. We can add some colour and saturation and stuff later on. And here's our character. So if we zoom in on our character, we can see that he kind of looks a little bit brighter. Those are slightly brighter than the backdrop. So what I'm going to do with our character is I'm going to go to Effect, and I'm going to go to color correction and brightness and contrast, and just for ease I'm just going to dial back some of that brightness ever so slightly, just so he's a little bit darker. So just take out some of those highlights and maybe drop the contrast down as well a little bit, so that he becomes a bit more grayscale, and drop him back into the footage. I mean, it's not the end of the world because he's meant to stand out, that's the whole point. You know, because he's unrealistically big, isn't he, at the beginning of this footage? So he's not meant to look kind of accurate, but we do kind of want to still make it look so he sort of belongs in the footage, even if he's a bit outrageously big, rather than just standing out. Okay, so once we've got that kind of the way we might want it, we're now going to go back to our black and white effect and just get rid of that. So I'm going to just backspace to get rid of that, and the same on our background. I'm going to go to my black and white effect, backspace to get rid of that. And now what we've got is a situation where we could just do with some grading on our background. So I'm going to just zoom out slightly, and on our background I might add a color correction and a hue and saturation effect. So I'm perhaps just going to dial up that saturation a little bit just to make that color pop a bit more. Maybe perhaps not quite that much, but sort of 30, something like that. Okay, and that looks fine. That looks fine to me. You know, for now. I mean, you can go to town on this, but I was only just sort of doing this little tutorial as a sort of an example of how to map the two bits of footage together. So that's fine for now. And then with our character, I still think our character pops a little bit too much color-wise. So what I might do is I might go to an effect, color correction, and my hue and saturation. I might just dial his saturation down slightly, and I might also, because he's a little bit on the pink side because of the lights in the room, so I might just do that, 14 maybe, and I might also just go and add a curves effect, and I'm just going to set the RGB to red, and I'm just going to pull this down slightly, and can you see what's happening there is it's just taking the sting out of those reds and just making him look a little bit like he kind of belongs in this footage again. Okay, so that's our color correction so far. So that's him mapped onto our footage. So what we now need to do is we now need to get him moving at the same rate as our circular footage. So we're going to do this in two halves. We're going to do the rotation first, and then we're going to do the slightly more complicated whirl-zoom effect in the second half. Okay. So as we can see at the moment, if we play forward, our footage is moving and our character isn't. So we're going to come back to the start, and we're going to position our character where we want him to be. Okay, so if we zoom in a little bit, we can see where that red dot was. It was about there, wasn't it? So he's a bit big at the moment for us to use that. That'll come in later on. For now, we just want to position him in a position where he's sort of roughly in the middle. So I'm going to use my position like so. I'm going to bring him up to the top like that, and I'm actually just going to add a little bit of rotation to him so that both of his toes kind of are on the edge of this green. Okay, so there he is. He stood on this ball. What we might do a bit later on is add a little bit of shadow as well, just to sort of make him bed in a little bit more, make him feel like he's actually planted there. But we'll do that in a bit. So here's our opening shot, and what we're going to do is we're going to click on the stopwatch for position and also the stopwatch for rotation. Okay, and what I'm now going to do is if I zoom back and then bring my footage all the way around like so, to the point where it starts to zoom in. So it's about there, isn't it? That's the last frame, it's there. Okay, and I'm going to whirl him around. Now I'm going to rotate him by dragging to the left so that he rotates the way that he ought to rotate, otherwise he's going to go the wrong way. Okay, and I'm also going to bring him across a little bit down so that he now should fit with our footage like so. So this is an approximation, but what you'll notice is that it kind of still looks good because we're going to use the we're going to track it so that it's nice and consistent, so wherever it is, even if it does move ever so slightly, we won't really notice it to begin with. Okay, so what's going to happen now then is he has rotated and he has also moved, but watch what happens is if we now rotate the footage, all that's happened is he's now going to rotate and move on a central axis, okay, which is not obviously what we want. So what we're now going to do is we're going to go to the middle, roughly about there. Okay, we're going to add a final set of keyframes because we're going to now move him to the side like so, like that. And if we zoom in, we can just about see, remember hold down spacebar, we can just about see that he is about approximately where he was previously. We might move him down slightly so that the doors are distant. There we go, that should do. Maybe we're going to rotate him just fractionally, just so that he, there we go, that should do. Okay, so now at the moment then we've got this line, and it doesn't quite, as you can see, this is the purpose of doing this tutorial, is to illustrate to you how you can change these tracking lines. And as you can see, these tracking lines don't really match the curvature of the ball, which is what we need. So as you can imagine, as we play the footage, he's now going to sort of go inside and then back up. So guess what we're going to do? We're now going to come to about here between the starting keyframe and the next one, and we're going to now adjust this track path. Okay, and the way we're going to do this is we're going to click on this point here. We're going to make sure you don't undo it, and then you're going to use this handle, and we're just going to use that handle to drag him out, and we're going to try and get that curve line to match the curvature of the ball. Okay, so I wouldn't play around with the handles on the center because they will affect each other, so I would try and use the handle on either end to begin with, but we can sort of have a crack at that. So what we're now going to do is move that to about there. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing, so we're going to click on this box here and drag him like so. Okay, that. And we can sort of fettle this a bit, so then we're going to go to like, okay, so he's now kind of moving, but he's now flying above the grass a little bit there. So we're just going to get to points where we feel we can start to manipulate this, like so, and we just keep adjusting it until we get the angle kind of right, you know, so we've got this curve matching the curvature of the ball. Okay, so we're going to go to here, and we're just going to adjust this one like so, and we're going to go to here, and we can see, of course, that the curvature isn't right, is it? Because obviously we can see how he's not really matching. So there we are. So the more we fettle this, and as I say, I'm not going to sort of spend a lot of time playing around with this, but you can, because obviously for this tutorial I'm going to get through it reasonably quick. So, but what you can see, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get this curve to match the curvature of the ball. We're kind of doing that by eye, you know, but gradually we should get to this point where he starts to match up with the movement of the footage. And if we now click away and start to play through, we can see that, you know, even though we've got a little bit of fettling still to go by using those handles, we can see that he's already starting to kind of curve quite nicely in terms of, you know, keeping his feet where they're meant to be and moving in a nice consistent pace with the movement of the footage. Okay, so as I say, you can sort of fettle that a little bit and get it to the point where that curvature really does match nicely with the curvature of the ball that he's stood on. And then once you've got it to that point, then we'll come back for the final video, and then we'll try and mat him into that sort of whirl zoom that we've been looking at earlier. Okay, this next bit, which obviously we haven't tracked him to yet. So join me in that next little bit and we'll have a look at that.